I was barking, on all fours, in the middle of a wide-open field, chasing a woman's dog while she screamed like the world was ending. And the wildest part, she brought it on herself. You ever have someone push you so far, ignore every boundary, every polite warning, every ounce of common decency, until something inside you just snaps? Because that's exactly what happened to me. And by the time it was over, she was on the ground, her dog was screaming, and I was driving away with a smile on my face, heading to get my dog's pup cups like nothing ever happened. If you've ever been judged, ever been treated like a villain for simply existing, ever swallowed your anger because you didn't want to cause a scene, then you're going to want to hear this all the way through. Hit like, subscribe, and buckle in, because this is one of the most unhinged, satisfying, and unexpected revenge stories you'll hear today. Before I tell you what she did, before I tell you what I did, you need to understand the weight I was already carrying that morning, because this wasn't just a random bad day. This was pressure that had been building for months. You see, when you own large dogs, especially dogs that look intimidating, you don't get the luxury of being neutral. You're never just a person with pets. You're a potential problem. Every walk feels like a performance review. Every interaction feels like a test you didn't sign up for. People cross the street when they see you. Parents pull their kids closer. Other dog owners tense up before anything even happens. And if something does go wrong, it's never what happened. It's always, I knew it. I learned that lesson early. I had 2 German Shepherds, both about a year old at the time, which, if you know shepherds, is basically the canine equivalent of teenagers who just discovered caffeine. They were all limbs and momentum, all curiosity and impulse. They didn't walk anywhere, they launched themselves. But here's what people didn't see. They were sweet, clingy, the kind of dogs that leaned their full weight into your legs just to feel close. They slept curled against me like they were afraid I'd disappear. They weren't aggressive, but they had been attacked by another dog, out of nowhere. And that changes something, not just in them, but in you. After that incident, I stopped trusting it'll be fine. I became hyper-vigilant. I watched ears, posture, leashes, distance, because I knew if something ever went wrong again, even if it wasn't their fault, they'd be the ones punished for it. Big dogs don't get second chances. We lived in an apartment back then. And yes, I know exactly what people think when they hear that. Why would you have big dogs in an apartment? Here's the truth. They weren't planned. They were given to us. And the alternative was a shelter. A shelter where large, high-energy dogs, especially shepherds, don't last long. So I adapted. I structured my life around them. Early mornings, late nights, extra walks, training sessions when I was exhausted. I didn't just own them. I advocated for them. And that's where the field came in. Next to our apartment complex was a college campus, and behind it, stretching farther than most people ever bothered to walk, was this massive open field. No playgrounds, no benches, no footpaths cutting through the middle, just grass and sky. It became our sanctuary. Other responsible dog owners used it too. People who understood space, people who respected boundaries. And I always went early. Not because I was sneaky, but because mornings were quiet, predictable, safe. I could let my dogs run, actually run, without feeling like I was breaking some invisible rule. They'd sprint, chase each other, collapse dramatically in the grass like they'd survived something epic. And for those moments, they weren't dangerous. They were just dogs. That morning felt normal. Cold air, grass damp with dew, my breath fogging as I laughed at my dogs tripping over themselves. They were mid-zoomy when I noticed movement near the edge of the field. A woman, walking a small dog. Instant reaction? Okay, no problem. This wasn't unusual. So I did what I always did. I called my dogs back. They came immediately. I clipped their leashes, not because I had to,
but because I wanted to show respect.
I moved farther out into the field, creating distance, space, a clear, silent signal. We're not here to bother you. But something felt off. She wasn't continuing along the edge. She wasn't passing by. She was turning toward us. Slowly, deliberately. I watched her path change. A straight line now. Direct. My chest tightened. Not panic, just confusion. So I stopped. Put my dogs in a sit. Firm. Controlled. Their bodies were calm but alert. And then her dog started barking. High-pitched, sharp, nonstop. That frantic, aggressive yapping that drills straight into your skull. My dog's ears flicked. Their bodies stiffened. Not lunging, not growling. Just uneasy. That familiar tension of animals who remember pain. So I raised my voice, not angry, just loud enough to carry. "Hey, could you not come closer? Your dog's barking and mine are getting stressed." That should have been it. That's where most reasonable people stop. But she didn't. She kept walking. Closer now. Close enough that I could see her expression. Not confusion. Not concern. Something else. Judgment. The pug was still barking. My dogs shifted their weight. I tightened my grip on the leashes. And that's when she spoke. Her voice wasn't loud. It was calm. Casual. Which somehow made it worse. "Well, since you're just letting your dogs run around without leashes," she gestured vaguely at my shepherds, "and they're a dangerous breed." There it was. That word. Dangerous. Like a verdict. It should be fine if I let mine run around too, right? Time slowed. My brain scrambled for logic. Because none of this made sense. We were alone. In a massive field. With distance. With control. I wanted to explain. About the recall. The harnesses. The trauma. About how I'd already moved. About how I was trying. But suddenly I felt small. Exposed. Like I was on trial. And I realized something chilling. She wasn't misunderstanding me. She was challenging me. And she wasn't going to stop. The thing nobody tells you about moments like this, moments where someone crosses a line right in front of you, is how fast your body reacts before your brain catches up. My hands tightened around the leashes, not enough to hurt my dogs, just enough that I could feel the texture of the nylon biting into my palms. My heart wasn't racing, it was sinking. That heavy, nauseating drop you get when you realize this isn't a misunderstanding, this is intentional. Even though we were alone in that massive field, it suddenly felt like we weren't, like there was an invisible audience watching, judging, waiting to see what the girl with the big scary dogs would do. I could already imagine the narrative if anything went wrong. She shouldn't have had them off leash. Why would someone like that bring dogs like that here? Those breeds are unpredictable. I'd lived with those thoughts long enough that they felt preloaded into my brain. And the woman in front of me, she knew it. That's the part that still makes my skin crawl. She knew exactly where her leverage was, that mornings were quiet, that they could relax here. And now here we were. She kept walking, slowly, deliberately, not toward the edge, not past us, straight at us. And I noticed something subtle, but unmistakable. Her shoulders were relaxed. Her grip on the leash was loose. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't cautious. She wasn't concerned about safety at all. She was comfortable. Comfortable pushing. Comfortable testing. Comfortable assuming she'd win. I tried again, because that's what people like me do. We give chances. "Please stop coming closer. My dogs are nervous." I kept my voice steady. Didn't raise it, didn't snap, didn't insult her. I was still trying to be the reasonable one. She tilted her head slightly, almost amused. If they're nervous, maybe they shouldn't be out here. There it was again. That implication, that subtle accusation. Your dogs don't belong. You don't belong. I opened my mouth, closed it. I wanted to say 100 things. that this was a public space, but I'd moved away first, that her dog was the one barking, that mine were leashed now. But none of it felt like it would matter, because people like her don't argue facts, they argue authority, and in her mind, she had it. Older, smaller dog, socially non-threatening. She fit the picture of someone who would be believed. I didn't. She stopped walking, finally. But not because she respected my request. She stopped because she'd reached the distance she wanted, close enough to loom, close enough to make a point. She looked down at my dogs, then back at me, and smiled. Not warm, not friendly, the kind of smile people use when they think they've cornered you. You know, she said casually, people get bit all the time by dogs like that. Dogs like that. Not your dogs. Not these dogs. Just that. I felt my face heat up. Anger flickered, but it was buried under something heavier. Fear. Not of her. Fear of consequences. Because if my dogs reacted, even defensively, even just barking back, everything would spiral. And she knew it. That's when it clicked. She wasn't just being rude. She was provoking. Every step closer. Every comment. Every refusal to stop. It was pressure. Testing. Seeing how far she could push before I broke. Before my dogs broke. And the worst part? If something happened, she'd get exactly what she wanted. Proof. Validation. A story to tell. See? I told you they were dangerous. I tightened the leashes again. My dogs leaned into me instinctively, like they could feel the tension radiating off my body. And that almost did me in, because they trusted me. They were looking to me for direction, for safety. And all I could think was, I failed you. That's when I made the choice. Not because she deserved it, but because my dogs did. I exhaled slowly, turned my body away from her, and started walking back toward the car. I didn't look at her, didn't respond, didn't engage. Because if I did, I was afraid I'd say something I couldn't take back. Or worse, she'd escalate. Behind me, I heard her scoff, a sharp, dismissive sound. Figures. That single word felt like a slap. Figures. Like she'd expected me to retreat. Like this outcome confirmed something in her mind. I didn't turn around, but every step felt heavier than the last. The field suddenly felt a mile long. My dog's pace slowed. They weren't pulling anymore. They walked close to my legs, heads low, confused. And I could feel the familiar burn behind my eyes, that humiliating sting of tears you don't want. Not because you're weak, but because you're tired. Tired of proving you're responsible. Tired of being judged. Tired of shrinking to make others comfortable. By the time we reached the car, my chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath. I loaded them up quickly, checked their harnesses, spoke softly. It's okay. You're okay. Closed the doors, sat down in the driver's seat, and the tears came. Not sobbing, not dramatic, just quiet tears rolling down while I stared through the windshield. My hands trembled slightly, adrenaline with nowhere to go. I felt embarrassed, not because I'd done something wrong, but because I'd done everything right and still lost. That's the part people don't understand. Sometimes the injustice isn't explosive. Sometimes it's quiet, and it hurts worse. I wiped my face, took a shaky breath. And then, something caught my eye. I looked back toward the field, toward where she was standing, and my brain struggled to process what I was seeing. Her hand moved, toward the leash clip. Time slowed again. The sound of the metal unclasping felt louder than it should have been. And then, she let go. Her dog bolted forward, free, running wild across the field. The same field she'd just shamed me out of.
the same behavior she'd accused me of. My tears stopped instantly, like someone flipped a switch. Shock flooded in first, then disbelief, then something darker, something hotter. Because in that moment, it was undeniable. This was never about safety. This was about control. And she'd just shown her hand.
The second I saw her unclip that leash, something inside me went quiet. Not calm, not peaceful, empty. Like all the noise in my head, every anxious thought, every self-doubt, every polite restraint just dropped out at once. My tears stopped mid-fall. My hand stopped shaking. And I realized, distantly, that my heart was beating too slow for the amount of adrenaline flooding my body. That's when I knew. This wasn't embarrassment anymore. This wasn't sadness. This was the moment right before something irreversible. She stood there watching her pug sprint across the field like it owned the place. No recall, no urgency, no concern. She didn't even pretend to call it back. She just watched, satisfied. And that's when the truth slammed into me with brutal clarity. She didn't care about rules. She didn't care about safety. She didn't care about dogs at all. She cared about winning, about asserting dominance in the most petty, calculated way possible. She wanted the field, and she wanted me gone. And she was absolutely sure I wouldn't do a damn thing about it. Because people like me, people who cry quietly in their cars, don't fight back, right? My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. The leather creaked. I felt heat rush up my spine, like a fuse finally reaching the end. My dogs shifted in the back seat, sensing the change in my energy. They let out small, questioning noises. I glanced at them, their faces pressed toward the window. Confused, hopeful, still expecting a walk, still trusting me. And something primal twisted in my chest. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every time I'd backed down. Every time I'd apologized when I didn't need to. Every time I'd been labeled the problem for existing too loudly. This woman didn't just disrespect me. She humiliated me. And then she rewarded herself for it. I opened the car door. The sound felt unnaturally loud in the quiet morning. Cold air hit my face. Sharp. Grounding. I stood there for a moment longer than necessary. My body felt light, detached, like I was watching myself from a few feet away. I remember thinking, briefly, this is a bad idea. And then another thought followed immediately after. I don't care. I didn't storm over. I didn't run. I walked. Slow. Steady. Purposeful. Each step felt deliberate, like my body had already decided something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The grass crunched softly under my shoes. The pug noticed me almost immediately. It froze, then barked. That same sharp, obnoxious bark, but now there was something else in it. Uncertainty. Confusion. I could hear the woman behind it. Her voice carried faintly. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" I didn't answer. My focus tunneled. The edges of my vision blurred slightly. All I could hear was my own breathing. Slow? Controlled. Almost too controlled. And then it happened. That intrusive thought. The one you don't plan. The one that just appears. A voice in my head. Quiet. Mischievous. Unhinged. Do it. Not shouted. Not dramatic. Just matter of fact. Like a suggestion that had always been there. Waiting. My lips twitched. My heart finally sped up.
And before my brain could argue, before logic could intervene, my body moved. I bent forward, dropped my center of gravity, hands loose, knees bent, and I barked. Not a fake woof, not a joke bark, a full-throated, raw, feral sound that ripped out of my chest without permission. The pug screamed, not barked, screamed. The woman gasped. I lunged forward, not at her, not touching anything, but close enough to flip the switch from control to chaos. And in that instant, the roles reversed. She wasn't the confident instigator anymore. She was panicking. And for the first time since this whole thing started, she was afraid.